Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session of uh, today's session is for the mock test, right? So we will solve the mock test, and after mock test, we will have some practice question also, right? From the chapter Anatomy of Flowering Plants, right? The practice question will be from the Anatomy of Flowering Plant, but this mock test is for the Structural Organization in Animals chapter and some questions from the morphology, right? Okay, so let us take this first question. Which of the following tissue is not found in the heart of a frog? If you see the heart of a frog, which of the following tissue is not present, right? So let us see the option for this question. A. Epithelial, B. Connective tissue, C. Muscular tissue, and D. Vascular tissue. Okay, so the correct answer is yes, epithelial tissue. Yes, the heart is having the connective tissue, they are having the muscular tissue, and they are also having the vascular tissue, right? But they are not having the epithelial tissue. So we will opt the first option, save, and move to our next question. Which statement about the frog's heart is correct? Let us see the statement. It has two chambers, one atrium and one ventricle. Second, it is covered by the pericardium and has three chambers. Next, the sinus venosus joins the left atrium. And option fourth, the conus arteriosus is located on the dorsal side. Right? So, the heart of frog is three chambered, not the two chambered. Right? So, according to the option B, it is covered by the pericardium and it has three chambers. So, three chamber heart is having the frog, and it is also covered by the pericardium membrane. Pericardial membrane is there. And in between the pericardium membrane and the wall of the heart, there is a presence of pericardial fluid that we have already studied, right? Now, see, the sinus venosus joins the left atrium, it joins the right atrium. The conus arteriosus is located on the dorsal side, it is located on the ventral side. So the correct statement is B1. It is covered by the pericardium and it has three chambers, two atrium and one ventricle. Two atrium and one ventricle, right? So we will save this and move to our next question. Frogs respire through their skin. During which time frogs respire through skin? A. Pulmonary respiration on land. B. Estivation and hibernation. C. Active swimming in water. And vocalization using the vocal sac. So, the frog respire through skin mainly when it is in the phase of estivation and hibernation, means when it is doing the process of summer sleep and winter sleep, right? So estivation and hibernation is the correct answer. But let us see the other, pulmonary respiration on land. Yes, they do the pulmonary respiration on land, but this is not related to the skin. Active swimming in water, this is also not correct. And vocalization using the vocal sac, no, that time also they are present on their land, so they use the pulmonary respiration. Okay, so this is the correct answer and we will save it and move to our next question. In frog, the digestion of carbohydrate and protein is primarily carried out by the enzyme from A. Gastric juice, B. Bile, pancreatic juice, and D. Intestinal villi. So, which of the having the which enzyme helps in the digestion of carbohydrate proteins? Most of the carbohydrate and protein get digested here. Sorry. See, the gastric juice is secreted in the stomach region, so that are not related to the digestion of carbohydrate. Some sort of protein is digested there. So the option A is incorrect. Bile juice is there for the emulsification of fat. That is nothing to do with the carbohydrate or the protein, right? Pancreatic juice, the juice that is secreted by the pancreas, they are meant for the digestion of carbohydrate, protein, and also the fat, right? Lipase is there. Okay. Intestinal villi is meant for the absorption of the digested food, not for the digestion of food, right? So pancreatic juice is the correct option, and we will save and move to our next question. Which structure in frog is responsible for receiving sound signal? Sound signal they receive with what? Right? A. Nictitating membrane. B. Tympanum. C. Vocal sacs. And D. Cloaca. So, sound signal is received by ear. And in case of frog, the ear is represented by tympanum. So, B is the correct answer. But nictitating membrane, that is, they protect their eyes when they are in water. So nictitating membrane, human also having the nictitating membrane, but that membrane is vestigial. It is not as an active, right? We are having the eyelids. We are not having the nictitating membrane as an active organ. So it is a vestigial, right? And vocal sac, yes, vocal sac they do possesses, but that is nothing to do with the receiving of the sound signal. But yes, that is produced. They produces the sound with the help of vocal sac. Cloaca is there for eliminating out the excretory substances from the body, as well as the in the case of male they receive take out, male and female they take out the gametes from that, right? So it is again nothing to do with the receiving the sound signal. So tympanum is the correct option. We will save and move to our next question. Why is the organization of tissue into organs essential in multicellular organism? See, to increase the number of cells for more efficient and coordinated activities. C, to reduce the metabolic processes, to simplify the cellular functions. Why is the organization of tissue into organ is essential? Multicellular, as the organism become multicellular, there's the formation of tissue, then there is a formation of organ, then there is organ system as the organism become more and more complex one, right? So that increases the efficiency as well as the coordinated activities in the body, right? So B option is correct. But what about the first one? To increase the number of cells. Why to increase the number of cells? That is nothing to related to just they are forming the organ to increase the number of cells. It is absolutely incorrect one. To reduce the metabolic processes. They want to increase the metabolic processes. So that is why they are having the very specific organ and organ system like organization, right? To simplify cellular function. No, this is also incorrect. So the correct one, as you have opted for more efficient and coordinate activities. This is the correct one. Okay, let's move to our next question. Which of the following is not a characteristic of frog? Not a characteristic of frog. A. Poikilotherms. B. Closed circulatory system. C. Presence of copulatory pad in females. And D. Ureotelic excretion. This is not a characteristic of frog. Poikilotherms, yes, they are poikilotherms. They cannot regulate their body temperature. So they are poikilotherms. Closed circulatory system. Yes, they are having the closed circulatory system as they are having the vessels, blood vessels, arteries, veins, and capillaries. These are the different blood vessels that we see in the case of circulatory system, closed form of circulatory system. The blood doesn't flow like we see in the case of cockroach, that it is flowing all over the tissue and the cells, hemolymph, right? That is the open type of circulatory system. Coming to the third one, the presence of copulatory pad in females. Yes, the copulatory pad is found in frog, but not in the case of female. It is found in the case of males. It is found in the case of males. So, this is the incorrect. And ureotelic, yes, it is a ureotelic. So, this is also correct. But the third option, presence of copulatory pad in female, this is not the feature of frog. So, we will opt it and move to the next. Why does anatomy specifically study? Why we study anatomy? A. External form of organs, morphology of internal organs, evolutionary relationship, cellular organization. So, which is the correct one? External forms of organ. External form is the morphology. Only morphology. You are studying the external morphology of flowering plants, animals. But when you study the internal organ, morphology of internal organ means you are studying the internal structures, cell, tissue that you see inside the organism. That is anatomy, right? Now, it is nothing to do with the evolutionary relationship. In the anatomy, we do not see evolutionary relationship. We go for the anatomy to see the internal structure of the organisms, right? Cellular organization. No. We see tissue, organ, right? So, this could be correct, but the correct one, the most appropriate one is the internal organ, right? So, we will save and move to our next question. Which organ system's complexity displays an evolutionary trend? A. Digestive system. B. Circulatory system. Both organ and organ system. And D. Excretory system. Which organ system complexity displays an evolutionary trend? Where you study the evolutionary trend while studying the internal systems, like when you study the digestive system, at that time you see the evolutionary trend. While studying the circulatory system, at that time you see the evolutionary trend. Or when you see the excretory system, then you see the evolutionary trend. Where you see the evolutionary trend? When you study organ as well as the organ system. Yes, when you are studying the heart, suppose you are studying the heart of fish, then you see the two chamber heart. The fish are having the two chamber heart. When you are studying the amphibians, then they are having the three chamber heart. But when you are studying birds or humans, they are having four chamber heart. In this way, you see there is a evolutionary relationship while studying the organ. Now, coming to the organ system. We see different type of excretory system, right? In the case of flame cells, in the platyhelminthes, we are having the flame cells, right? In the case of earthworm, they are having the nephridia. In the case of arthropodans, they are having Malpighian tubules, right? And when you see the frog, they are having the nephron. And when you study the human, then also you see the well-developed kidney, and inside the kidney, the unit structure is the nephron, right? So you see the evolution while studying the organ system as well. You are studying the excretory system. And when you are studying only heart, then you are studying only organ. So while studying organ and organ system, right, we see that there is an increase in the complexity of the organ and organ system, and that is showing the evolutionary trend, right? So this is absolutely correct one, both organ and organ system. Very nice question. Okay, let's move to the Next question. What is the primary focus of morphology in animals? When you study the morphology, what is the primary focus? A. Study the internal organ structure. B. Study the evolutionary trend. C. Study the externally visible features of organism. And D. Study the cellular processes. So, what is the correct answer? Hmm? So, morphology is the feature that you see externally. If you are studying any plant or if you are studying any animal, then there is a morphology part. So, what you study there? Morphology of flowering plants. We are having a chapter. We have studied about the features of, like, what is the stem, what is the root, how how it look externally, not internally. Not internally. In that chapter, we have studied about uh, the external feature of root, the external feature of stem, the external feature of leaves, then flowers, everything, everything. How the plant look from outside, not from inside. When you consider it from inside, then that is the anatomy part, right? So, study of externally visible features of organism. This is going to be the correct one. And here in this, internal organ structure is not considered. Study of evolutionary trend is not considered. And study of cellular process is also not considered. Only how the plants and animal visibly looks off from the outside. Like when you study the frog, then there is a topic called morphology of frog, right? So how the frog look from outside. It is having a trunk region, it is having a head region, right? So that gives you the external feature of that organism. Okay, let's opt this as a correct option and save it and move to our next question. The endometrium is found in A. Placenta of mammals, nipples of mammals, C. Uterus of mammals, and none of these. So, where we see the endometrium? See, placenta of mammals. Placenta is not having the endometrium. The endometrium is the lining, and that is the lining of the cell that is found in the case of uterus. And at the time of mid of the menstrual cycle, it becomes highly vascularized. It becomes highly vascularized. So, endometrium is a type of lining of the cell that we see in the case of uterus. It is not seen in the case of nipples. It is not present in the placenta part, right? So, that is not going to be the correct. The correct one is the uterus of mammal. So, we will opt this as a correct answer, save it, and move to our next question. Which of the following is present between the adjacent bones of the vertebral column? This question came in neat. Which of the following is present between the adjacent bone of the vertebral column? Right? Just adjacent bone. Areolar tissue, smooth muscles, cartilage, and intercalated disc. So, which is the correct answer? A. Areolar tissue. B. Smooth muscles. C is cartilage, and D is the intercalated disc. So, intercalated disc is not the correct, as specialized structure found in the cardiac muscle tissue that connect adjacent muscle cells. Intercalated disc, right? It is not the correct one. It is a specialized structure. You can note down. It is a specialized structure that is found in the cardiac muscles tissue that connect adjacent muscles. Okay, adjacent muscles, and it facilitating both mechanical and electrical communication, because the contraction and rhythmic contraction and relaxation is provided to the heart by this electrical communication. Okay. Now, you know that areolar tissue is not present there. Smooth muscles is also not present there. So, what is present actually? The cartilage. Cartilage is present in between the vertebral column, like between the adjacent vertebrae. Actually, the unit of the vertebral column is called as vertebrae. That is the bone, right? There are a number of vertebrae that joins together and form a vertebral column. Now, between each vertebrae, there is a presence of cartilage. So, there is a lot of movement while we sit, while we sleep, while we run in the vertebral column. And at that time, the bones are rubbing each other, vertebrae are rubbing each other. And this cartilage is protecting our vertebrae. Otherwise, what will happen? The bones can get damaged by the friction, right? So every edge of the bone is having a covering of the cartilage, so that like when they are in a movement, they do not rub each other, and our bones should get be that is always be protected, right? So the cartilage is the correct answer. So we can save this as a correct answer and move to our next question. Okay, this is a match the column type of question. Hmm? Match the organism with their excretory organ. So, okay, in the first column, the organisms are there, and in the second column, excretory organ is there. So, let us see the what are the items that is given in the first column organism. A. Earthworm, B. Cockroach, C. Rotifers, and D. Prawn. Excretory organ, P. Protonephridia, Q. Green glands, R. Nephridia, and S. Malpighian tubule. So, earthworm. Earthworm are having nephridia as a excretory organ. So, A will match with the R, right? Now, cockroach. Cockroach is having Malpighian tubule as an excretory organ. Okay, cockroach is having Malpighian tubule as an excretory organ. So, B will match with the S. Okay, rotifers. Rotifers are having protonephridia, and prawn is having green glands. So now you can make out the correct, which option is showing the correct match. Hmm? A should be matched with the R, B, cockroach should be matched with the S, and C should be matched with the P, and D should be matched with the Q. So I think C option is showing the correct match. A, R, B, S, C, P, and D, Q. Yes, this is the correct match. We can save this and move to our next question. Now, read the following four statements 1 to 4. First is in birds, the skin is dry without any gland except the preen gland, which are modified sudorific glands. Okay. All mammals exclusively respire by using lungs except dolphins. Third, chameleon is a tree lizard with a prehensile tail and independently movable eyes. Fourth, only amphibia is the only tetrapod vertebrate which has external fertilization with no larval stage in their life cycle. So, which one is the correct? How many statements are correct from the above? So, what could be the answer? How many statements are correct? Preen gland is actually a type of sebaceous gland found in most birds, located at the base of the tail. Okay, preen gland, but they are not sudorific gland. They are not sudorific gland. They are uropygial gland. If it is written uropygial, then this statement could be correct. Hmm. All mammals exclusively respire by using lungs except dolphins. Is this a correct? Is this a correct answer? See, this is the incorrect one. This is the incorrect because dolphin also respire with the dolphin also respire with the lung. Amphibia is the only tetrapod vertebrate which has external fertilization with no larval stage. Amphibia is having the larval stage. So this is also incorrect. But chameleon is a tree lizard with a prehensile tail and independently movable eyes. Okay. So only one statement is correct. The rest of are incorrect. Right? So let us save this and move to our next one. Moist cuticle is the respiratory organ. Moist cuticle is the respiratory organ in which of the following organisms? First, insects. Second, earthworms. Third, aquatic arthropods and mollusks. And fourth, amphibians like frogs. So, which is having the moist cuticle as an respiratory organ? The correct answer is earthworm. Earthworm is actually having a covering of a cuticle at their outer body surface. And when they are wet, they can take oxygen from that. Right? So the cuticle is the respiratory organ in which the following organism. So earthworm. Earthworm is having the cuticle covering at their skin, and that is helpful for exchange of gases. Right? So other insects, they are having chitin that is not meant for the respiration. Instead, they are having some holes that are called as spiracles through which the organ they can take the oxygen. So insect is incorrect. Aquatic arthropods and mollusk, hmm, they are also not having such cuticle like covering. Amphibians like frogs, they respire with the skin, but they are not having any cuticle like covering, right? So earthworm is the correct answer. Let's save it and move to our next question. The tissue whose cells act like a diffusion boundary is R. Diffusion boundary. First, simple cuboidal epithelium. Second, simple columnar epithelium. Third, simple squamous epithelium. And fourth, all of the above. So, which tissue cells act like a diffusion boundary? Now, can you give you a hint that that cell act like a diffusion boundary which is very thin and flat? So, which one will be thin and flat? Squamous. Squamous epithelium is very thin and flat, right? If you see the cuboidal, then they must be having some height. If you see the columnar, then they are having larger height. So through which the diffusion is not very easy. But the squamous, as they are flat and their height is very less, so through that the oxygen, there can be a diffusion of gas possible. So the third, the simple squamous epithelium is the correct option, right? So we will save and move to our next question. Which one of the following option is our correct regarding the compound epithelium? Regarding the compound epithelium. First, multi-layered with no stretchability. Second, cover the moist surface of buccal cavity and pharynx. Third, provide protection against the chemical and mechanical stress. And fourth, They play a vital role in secretion and absorption. Compound epithelium. Hmm? What is the function of compound epithelium? They play a vital role in secretion and absorption, right? Your villi is a compound epithelium. It is not a very simple type of epithelium, right? So, compound epithelium we see in the case where there is a process of secretion, where there is a process of absorption. So, D is the correct one. We can opt and move to our next question. The nephridia of earthworms are concerned with the nephridia. What is the function of nephridia in the case of earthworm? A. Locomotion. B. Excretion of nitrogenous waste. C. Digestion. And D. Respiration. So, nephridia is an excretory organ in the case of earthworm, right? So, excretion of nitrogenous waste is the correct. It is not related to the locomotion or digestion or respiration process. So, we will save this. Move to our next question. Which type of mouth part is present in the lateral side of the preoral cavity in the case of cockroach? Hmm? A. Labrum and mandibles, mandibles and labium. C. Mandibles and the first maxillae. And D. Mandibles and hypopharynx. So, the correct answer is the mandibles and the first maxillae. There you see the formation of the preoral cavity in the case of cockroach, right? So, mandibles and first maxillae will form the preoral cavity in the case of cockroach. So, we will save this. Mammary gland is a modification of, very important question. Mammary gland is a modification of A. Sweat glands, B. Salivary gland, C. Lacrimal gland, and D. None of these. Eyes. We get the drop from our eyes when we are sad or when any dust particle goes to our eyes. At that time, this lacrimal gland secrete out some water that eliminate out whatever the dirt or particles are there in our eyes. Mammary gland is the modification of sweat gland. It is the modification of sweat gland. Very important question. It is not a modification of salivary gland. It is not a modification of lacrimal gland, right? So it is a modification of sweat gland. So we will save this and submit the test. So this is the all our answers are correct. Now we will have some uh, practice question that from the chapter anatomy of flowering plants. Okay. Now we will have a practice question from anatomy of flowering plant chapter. Disclaimer. So learning objective to understand the fundamental concept of the chapter anatomy of flowering plant by working through the practice question. So let us take the questions. We are having 24 questions here. The first question. Specialized epidermal cells surrounding the guard cells are called A. Complementary cells, B. Subsidiary cells, C. Bulliform cells, and D. Lenticels. Very important question. What is the special name given to the cell that surrounds the guard cells? What is the name of that? Hmm? Surrounding the guard cells. Let's move to the answer. It is subsidiary cells. If it is a subsidiary cells. See the structure of stomata 1, which is given in the NCERT. They are having the guard cells, and guard cells are surrounded by T4 modified epidermal cells. In the case of dicot, that is called as subsidiary cells. In the case of grasses, the dumbbell shaped guard cells are there, and they also surrounded by the two subsidiary cells in the case of grasses, right? So subsidiary cells is the correct answer. Let us see the explanation. Subsidiary cells, also called as accessory cells, are specialized epidermal cells that directly surround the guard cells in a stomatal complex. Okay. These cells help support and regulate the function of guard cells during the stomatal opening and closing. So they are helping the guard cells while opening and closing up of the stomata, whether they have to provide the water from the surrounding epidermal cells, right? They play a crucial role in maintaining the turgor pressure necessary for the proper stomatal movement and help in the efficient gas exchange process, right? To maintain the turgidity in the guard cells, these cells are providing some movement of water from the subsidiary cells to the stomatal guard cells, right? So that the guard cell could be open, right? They should be open and the pore is open so that gases exchange could takes place during the photosynthesis, during the respiration. The presence and the arrangement of the subsidiary cells can vary among the different plant species, and it is often used as a taxonomic characteristic. Now, these subsidiary cells are not only we study in the case of anatomy, you can see they are used as a taxonomic characteristics that is used in the taxonomy, right? Because the species, they are having the fixed numbers of the subsidiary cells. Now you can divide, just seeing the subsidiary cell, you can divide whether it is a dicot one or the monocot, right? Very important. Okay, let us move to the next question. Root hairs develop from the region of A, elongation, B, root cap, C, meristematic activity, D, maturation. Which zone helps in the development of the root hairs? Let us see the answer. Yes, D, maturation zone. Maturation zone in the roots, developing roots, they are having the development of the root hairs. So root hair develop in the maturation zone of the root. This zone located in the zone of elongation, where the cells have completed their growth and begin to differentiate into the specialized cell. So there is a division phase that is present in the cells where its continuous division is there, right? That is the which type of cells? Meristematic. Meristematic zone is there that continuously divide, then there is a zone of elongation. Zone of elongation. And after, once the cell get elongated, the cell get modified. Modified, and then they develop the root. So root hairs are the microscopic extension of the epidermal cells, also called as trichoblast, that increase the surface area of the root for better water and mineral absorption from the soil. So these structure only form the maturation zone where the cells have reached their final size and shape. In the maturation zone, the cells achieve the final differentiation, final size and shape, and then they give rise their extension as a root hairs, right? That moves to the next question. So the following is made up of dead cells. A, collenchyma, B, phloem, C, phloem, D, xylem parenchyma. Which is made up of dead cells? Collenchyma, phloem, C, phloem, and xylem parenchyma. Okay, let us see the Correct answer. B phylum. Yes, B phylum is the correct answer. Let us see the explanation part. Phylum, that is also called as cork. Another name of phylum is the cork, and it is composed of the dead cell with the suberized walls. The walls get suberized and the cells are comparatively dead. So it forms the outer protecting layer of the bark in the woody plant, and it is produced by the cork cambium, that is called as phallogen, right? So this region is also having a cambium layer that is specially called as a cork cambium. This cork cambium divide internally as well as outerward. When it divides, give a rise cells outerward, the cells become dead, suberized, and they forms the dead protective layer over the woody plants. The cells are dead at maturity because they are filled with the suberin. As they get filled with the suberin, they become dead. A waxy substance that make them impermeable to water and gases. Okay? There is a lot of deposition of suberin outerward and makes the cells in such a way that they cannot exchange the gases, they cannot take the water from the surrounding cells, right, helping to protect the plant. And why they are they get suberized so that they could protect the plant. The inner tissue should get protection, but due to this, the self which gets suberized itself become dead. But this dead cells is actually doing the function of protection to the plant. So unlike the others like collenchyma, phloem parenchyma, which are all living tissue that perform active function in the plant, phylum consists entirely of living cells. Now here you can see that in the case of phloem and phloem, there is a phloem fibers. But before, when the phloem cells, the four different types of phloem cell formation takes place, they were living. But later on, when they become mature, only the phloem fiber is dead one. But this phylum is the correct answer as it is totally dead and contain the cork cell. Okay. Next question. Which of the following facilitate opening of stomatal aperture? Hmm? Which of the following facilitate opening of stomatal aperture? A. Decrease in turgidity of the guard cells. B. Radial orientation of the cellulose microfibril in the cell wall of the guard cells. C. Longitudinal orientation of cellulose microfibrils in the cell wall of the guard cells. And D. Conduction of water outer wall of guard cell. Conduction of outer wall of guard cell. So which of the following facilitate opening of stomatal aperture? Let us see the answer of this question. The correct answer is option B, radial orientation of the cellulose microfibril in the cell wall of the guard cell. Because if you see the guard cells, they are having the curvature. They are not very straight cell. The guard cell, if you see the shape, they are having a curvature. So the cellulose microfibrils will be radially orientation. They will have the radial orientation. The radial orientation of the cellulose microfibril in guard cell was crucial for stomatal opening. When the guard cell absorb water and become turgid, this specific radial arrangement allows the cells to curve outward, right? If they are not present radially, then there will be this curve-like things will not be there outward rather than expand uniformly. So this curved shape create the stomatal pore opening, right? So radial orientation act like a hoop around the barrel, forcing the guard cells to bend when they fill with water, which is essential for the stomatal opening mechanism. Next question. Stomata in grass leaf are A. Dumbbell shaped, B. Kidney shaped, C. Barrel shaped, and D. Rectangular. They are asking for the grasses. Like in grasses, what is the shape of the stomata? Let us see the answer. It is dumbbell shaped. It is not barrel shaped. Stomata in grass leaf, and grass belong to the monocot. And monocot is having the dumbbell shaped stomata. They are not having the bean shaped, right? So remember the shape. We have discussed this. Grass leaves have the dumbbell shaped stomata, which is a distinctive characteristic of the family Poaceae. Okay, Poaceae family. These grasses belong to the Poaceae, which is also called as grasses. Unlike most other plants, have the kidney shaped guard cells. Kidney shaped guard cells. That all dicot is having the kidney shaped guard cells. Grass stomata have the guard cells that are narrow in the middle and wider at the end. So that makes the dumbbell shape. So this unique structure helps the grasses regulate water loss efficiently, which is particularly important as many grasses grow in open after often dry environment. Okay, let's move to next question. So the dumbbell shape also allow for more rapid opening and closing of the stomatal pore compared to kidney shaped stomata, right? So opening and closing of stomata is more rapid in the monocot due to the shape of this dumbbell shape as you compared with the kidney shaped stomata that we see in the case of dicot. This last line is very important. Yes. See, with the explanation, we get more and more information. This question was quite an easy question. But if you see the explanation details, you will get more facts about it. Like this fact is very important. The dumbbell shaped allows for more rapid opening and closing of the stomatal pore compared to the kidney shaped stomata, right? Okay, let's move to the next question. Casparian strips occur in where we see the Casparian strips: A. Epidermis, B. Pericycle, C. Endodermis, and D. Cortex. Where we see the Casparian strips. Which option is correct? Okay, so I'll move to the answer part. Where we see the Casparian strip. This we have already talked about. Hmm? Let us see the answer. Yes, C. Endodermis. Endodermis is correct answer. Casparian strips are found in the endodermis layer of plant roots. Okay, they are having the endodermis and it is covered with the covering that is called as Casparian strips. So they are band-like structure made up of suberin. Band-like structure that is made up of suberin, a waxy water impermeable substance. It do not allow the water to be permeable. That form around the radial and transverse wall of the endodermal cells, right? So these strips create a barrier that force water and minerals to pass through the cell membrane and cytoplasm, allowing the plant to control which substance enter the vascular system, right? So these strips are very, very important. It is forming a barrier like things, and only some of the substances could be passed through the cell membrane and to the cytoplasm. So it is having a control that which substance will enter to the vascular system. So this selective transport is crucial for the plant's nutrient uptake and water regulation as well. Next question. Xylem translocates. What xylem translocates? A. Water only. B. Water and mineral salts only. C. Water, mineral salts, and some organic nitrogen only. D. Water, minerals, some organic nitrogen and hormones. Very important question. What xylem translocates? Okay. Okay, let's see the correct answer. The correct answer is D1. D is the correct answer. See, xylem translocates water, mineral salts, and some organic nitrogen. And hormones. Don't forget hormones. Cytokinin synthesized in the roots and it is transported to the above parts of the plant. Right? So, hormones are also translocated through the xylem. Let's see the explanation. Xylem is a complex tissue that primarily transports water and dissolved substances. What are the dissolved substances? So, upward from roots to the other parts of the plant. It carries water and mineral salt, but also transport some organic nitrogen compounds like amino acid and plant hormones. This comprehensive transport system help in maintain the plant's overall growth and development. Yes, the hormones are very important. It is required by the plant for the growth and development. Yes, so it is transported by the xylem. By ensuring all parts receive necessary nutrients and regulatory substances. So what is the regulatory substances? Plant hormones. And the example of the plant hormone that got synthesized in the roots is the cytokinin, but it is transported to the above parts of the plant. Next question is here. Regeneration of a damaged growing grass following grazing is largely due to A. Secondary meristem, B. Lateral meristem, C. Apical meristem, D. Intercalary meristem. Let us see the answer. Yes, it is intercalary meristem, not the lateral meristem. Intercalary meristem is responsible for the regeneration of the damaged growing grass and grazing. Lateral meristem is the cambium. Lateral meristem is cambium that is present in the where? Between the xylem and phloem in the vascular bundle. That is the lateral meristem. Where is the intercalary meristem present? On the nodal region. Nodal region. The axils of leaf, there is a formation of bud. That bud give rise to new branches. And what is the question? Regeneration of damaged growing grasses following the grazing is largely due to when there comes the browsers, herbivorous animal, they graze the grasses. So what happened? But they profuse very fast. They grow very fast because the intercalary meristem give rise to new branches, right? This meristem is located at the nodes and the base of the leaf blades in grasses. And to be very precise, lateral meristem means cambium is absent in grasses. They are not present in grasses. Monocot plant na lateral meristem means cambium. It is absent in grasses. Closed type of this vascular bundles they are having. So when animal graze on grass, cutting off the top portions, these intercalary meristem allows the grass to regrow quickly from the nodes. And I give you one example more. Like if you have seen the tea collector in the tea garden, what they do? They pluck the top leaves, top 2-3 leaves, apical meristem. And what will happen? From the axils of the leaf, intercalary meristem, the new branches arises and your tea become bushy, right? So there is the intercalary that give rise more and more branching. Okay. Lateral meristem is related to increase the girth of the tree that is basically found in the dicot plant, not in the monocot. So this is unique adaptation in grasses that enable them to survive and recover from grazing damage. One last question we can take. Phloem in gymnosperm lack A. Albuminous cells and sieve cells. B. Sieve tubes only. C. Companion cells only. D. Both sieve tubes and companion cells. Let us see the answer of this question. D. Both sieve tubes and companion cells. Gymnosperm have simpler phloem structure as compared to the angiosperm, right? The phloem in gymnosperm does not contain sieve tubes and companion cells, but instead the sieve cells and albuminous cells. They are having sieve cells. They are not having sieve tube cells. Very clear. Sieve tube and companion cell absent. Instead of that, they are having sieve cell and albuminous cells. So sieve cells serves as a primitive conducting cell, which while the albuminous cells or the Strasburger cells provide metabolic support to the sieve cells. It is almost same thing. It is almost same thing, but they are not full-fledged companion cell. These albuminous cells, they are again, you can see the Strasburger cell or albuminous cells. They are supporting the sieve cells, as we have seen in the case of companion cells supported the sieve tube cells, right? So this phloem tissue organization represent the fundamental anatomical distinction between the gymnosperm and angiosperm. And if you see the xylem vessels are absent in the case of gymnosperm. This is again one of the difference that we have studied. So do remember these points. Okay. Okay. So thank you very much for attending today's session. Tomorrow we will have again our session. So we will meet again tomorrow. Thank you very much for attending today. Goodbye.